Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Hello, good people. Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I am your host, Nnamdi Osuagwu. Thanks for joining today. Today, I'm going to talk about home buyers' nightmare. Title mean. We're talking about real estate transactions gone wrong. When you think you're buying a house and you're wiring money to your title company, but you're really wiring it to a cybersecurity threat actor or hacker, really cybersecurity criminal, and they get your wired funds. It happens more than you know. So that's today's episode, and we're going to talk through it. Let's do some housekeeping. So we are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. Have another stream going from Instagram. Those on Instagram, what's up? If you want to see it through those other channels, you'll be able to comment there. So on that note, feel free to comment, drop some personal stories if you have some, or questions or so forth. And it'd be a quick show today. Let's just get through it, but I definitely want to talk about it. So why is this important, right? Imagine you've been saving all your life for your dream home, and you finally found it, right? It was a hard search. You had to get something that met your budget in the area that you want, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you're at the final stages of the transaction, meaning, the person selling the home agreed to sell to you. You saved enough money. Your bank approved the mortgage. Everything seems to be going according to plan. You have a title company you're working with. For those that don't know, in the real estate world, you just don't give the money to the buyer. You go through a title company so they can, when the transaction is closed, you are the rightful owner of the home. That's their job in this realm as an intermediary. So they usually send you something called wire instructions, right? Because various funds have to be wired so that the buyer gets their money. If loans have to be paid off, the bank that has a mortgage for the buyer, they'll get their money. So that the title company serves as that intermediary to handle those transactions. So usually we will email them the remaining of the closing costs, what they call the closing costs, right? Because those are what you need to close the transaction. So what we're seeing now is usually all this is going back and forth via email. You might talk to them a couple of times, but then they always say they'll email you the wire instructions and so forth. You get this email, you would go to your bank, right? Because the wire instructions will be the corresponding on the title's bank, their account numbers, and so forth. And then you'll end up transferring your money through the wire to the title company. They get it in a perfect transaction, and then you'll sign a bunch of papers, and you'll now be the rightful owner of this dream property, right? That's in a perfect scenario. What happens if that email that the title company sent wasn't from the title company? What happens if a third party, a cyber criminal, got into the email system of the title company? They didn't do anything initially. They're just watching. They see that you're about to close on your home. They've been watching you for the last month or weeks, right? Going back and forth with the title company. They know that closer to closing, you're going to have to transfer the remaining of the funds. Usually it's your down payment of 20%. You may have initially put in an earnest deposit. So that's the money just to let the buyer know that you're serious and to make sure that they hold the deal for you. But the remaining of those funds are going to come at closing. So these people compromise minds to email the title company. They've been watching for the last few weeks. They know that that big deposit is coming soon, right? They're going to send you instructions. So what they do is they send over new wire instructions or their own wire instructions. The bank that they use is their own. It's their own account and so forth. So now you get this. You now send over the funds because that's what you're expected to do. A day later, you get another email from the real title company with different instructions. You have this pit in your stomach, like, what is going on? So you call the title company. They have no clue what you're talking about. So they're like, we're just sending you the instructions. You know, I already sent you the money. They're like, no, you didn't. So does this sound impossible? Fortunately, the reason I'm doing this show is happened to someone. Her name is Raina Robillard. It happened to thousands of others, but this is a recent story that I read. She ended up sending the cyber criminals $398,359.58. So close to $400,000. She ended up sending these criminals, and her funds were gone, just like that. The house obviously is from a seller's perspective, right? I'm a seller and I'm trying to sell this home, and you run into this issue. It's sad, but it's not technically my problem. I still have to sell this home. So the home that you've been saving for, I mean, that might be off the market. Somebody else may buy it. Your funds are in total limbo, and yeah, man, it's a growing epidemic. I'll tell you some stats. So with her, she went through a 6-month process of finally getting her funds back. Right, the FBI was involved. The corresponding bank, JP Morgan, was involved because of the account. The funds were initially sent to a JP Morgan Chase account. I guess that's one of the cyber criminals accounts. The title company obviously was involved, and it just dragged on for a very long time. So you know, it's one of those things that I think with a basic process could be avoided, right? There's other things we're going to get into in terms of cybersecurity regulatory practices that I feel that title companies should implement. They have some going on, and they have to report certain things. But we should look into how do we prevent this from happening in the future. And I just don't understand why certain things weren't being done. And I'm talking from the perspective of as a real estate investor. I've been obviously you guys been watching the show for a while. I'm obviously a technologist, but on the side, I'm also a real estate investor. Forgive me, get a sip or something real quick. Those getting a little dry. Yeah, so I've done countless real estate transactions, and there's certain things that I implement in my practice when I'm doing these deals to ensure that I'm not sending money to the wrong place. And I think we get that we forget there's a human on the other side. Look, I'm for automation and everything like that. And part of my profession deals a lot with automation and technology. So let's talk to a person that I've been interacting with for the last few months, and let's just verify some things, right? Before I send over hundreds of thousands of dollars to someone. So let's go through some stats so we can understand why I'm calling this an epidemic, right? So a couple of stats we have to look at. Number one, according to the National Association of Realtors, nearly 14,000 people were victims of real estate wire fraud in 2020, with losses totaling over $213 million. Right? Let's get this now. That was 2020. That was 4 years ago. Um, Certifid, a wire fraud prevention and recovery firm, identified 1.4 billion in suspected wire fraud attempts in 2022. According to the FBI data, losses from fake email scams and real estate deals increased from less than 9 million in 2015 to 446 million in 2022. So if you look at it, it doubled in the 2 years from 2020 to 2022, from 200 million to 400 million. But if you look at 9 years ago in 2015, it was only 9 million. Not only, I mean, 9 million is a significant amount of number, but look at the increase, right? It's crazy. The FBI Internet Crime and Complaint Center received 9,521 real estate complaints in 2023. This year, right? According to the national, this year, from March 2024, more than 1 in 20 consumer victims of real estate fraud in a previous year, the median amount of loss exceeded 70,000. It's nuts. So you look at these stats, right? It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And it's going to get worse because no one like I said, right? Besides fintech, when I look at wire fraud and interacting with a bank, I look at all of those as part of the universe of fintech. We know we're talking about real estate. It's still money transactions, money moving from point A to point B to point C, and different intermediaries involved in that transaction. So that to me is still a part of the financial landscape, because we want to get funds, we want to purchase items. Some of those items are assets like real estate and so forth, and we want to kind of go through that process. People joining us, shout out to Ampercash from joining us on Instagram. So I mean, when we start looking at it from that perspective, a couple of questions arise, right? In working on the security side of fintech, I mean, one of the things that from an industry standard are companies being SOC 2 compliant. What does that even mean? For those that don't know, you're basically going through a series of controls, that's how we determine it, to really ensure your cybersecurity posture, and from all elements, right? From who you hire, from your systems to your data privacy. It's just a full gambit. And I mean, SOC 2 is just one, but we have various compliance frameworks that do similar. And the question is, where is that in terms of title companies? I know they have some regulatory standards like GDPR. It's an NYC DFS. So they do have some compliance frameworks. They have some data reporting. When I say data reporting, that means if something happened, they have to report it, because it's certain industries, it's like that. You get breached, you have to report it to you have to report it, basically. That's part, or you get fined. But that's after the fact. Still, people are losing money, and because in these transactions, it's almost no one is setting the process for the buyer. For instance, right? I've closed on numerous investment deals and so forth. I have a background in cybersecurity, so and I have a background in these things. So I'm always like, okay, I got the wire instructions. Let me call my contact. Let me see if these are the correct wire instructions before I send anything, right? But something that simple. If I've never had a situation where I was instructed, also side note, right? I'm a licensed, where I do business in PA. I'm also a licensed realtor out there. I use it to close my own transactions. So it's not like I work with a realtor, but I have worked with realtors in the past, and I've worked with title companies. And my whole point is, I've never heard any one of them talk about, oh, here are some best practices on cybersecurity. Oh, if we send you a wire, you should do this as well. So I'm making the general assumption, right, that other buyers are not getting this information. Why is that the case? I mean, simple. It's like, let's just put in basic processes. A lot of the thing in cybersecurity, I mean, I know they have all these movies and everybody doing all these, I don't know, you got the typical guy in a basement, he has a black hoodie, he has like 1,000 monitors and he's typing real fast. Yeah, I mean that not saying these things don't exist, but a lot of problems can be avoided just by implementing what we call basic hygiene. Because guess what? There are multiple ways to rob someone. And from a criminal standpoint, you want to go after the path of least resistance. So yeah, can you get complicated and extremely technical and do a whole bunch of stuff to pull off the heist? Yeah, you can. But if I can compromise your email, send a fake email and get hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'd rather do that. It's quick. I don't have to think about it. I think about it, but I don't have to, have a bunch of super brilliant technologists trying to pull off the scam of the century. No, I don't have to do that. Right. All I have to do is literally, once we get into the email, send a fake email that looks real and it's a con, right? It's literally that. I'm trying to trick you into doing something against your best interest. So how can that be avoided? Why can't we just put simple, basic things in place? Like, here are some of the things. Because, one of the things we say, I mean, when you start talking about organizations, the biggest threat in cybersecurity from an organizational standpoint, that's your employees. People go, why? How can you say that? The biggest threat are the employees. What about this? What about that? Employees meaning lack of awareness. They're doing stuff like clicking on phishing emails and just clicking on random things and getting the company now compromised because now the intruder has now have access, and then they could do, now once they get access, now they could do different things in terms of move laterally through your organizational systems and try to escalate their privileges, meaning they want to get more privilege, they could just do more harm. But the initial entrance was because at times someone clicked on an email. Obviously, there are other aspects when we can get into application security. This gets more complicated, and that's fine. And that's a valid way to compromise applications. But let's just talk about basic hygiene. That's really what this stands. This really is what this is about, right? How was the email compromised? Was it compromised? Because in order to compromise it, they had to get access to the title company first. Let's look at this chart. Let's look at this chart. The chart that I have, it was just crazy. Let's blow this up. Look at this chart. Hold up. I'm gonna pull it up here. So what this chart shows, like what we talked about, right? From the FBI in 2015, looking at chart, started off at like 9 million, kept growing. And this is even a bigger number. So now in 2022, they have it at 450 million, we just talked about, from victim losses from email scams in US real estate deals. I think there should be more. I think there should be just more cybersecurity best practices. I don't know if any of these title companies are working with a person, a consultant, or whatever to really kind of set certain cybersecurity practices in place. At least I would think about it, right? Even if the necessary title company is not involved, you know who I think has a vested interest in this? The insurance agency. Because someone's paying some insurance, and I'm sure what happens is a lot of these companies, and it's another thing that I see in this industry a lot. It's like, oh, we have cybersecurity insurance. So because you have the insurance, you think that, I don't have to put certain practices in place. Which, you gotta think about that, because sometimes you might have the insurance, But what happens is when it's time to pay out, they're like, oh, but you didn't do X, Y, and Z basic things, so we're not going to pay you. So, a lot of organizations are think that they're shielded from it. Oh, we get rid of this. We had the wrong title there. So that's that. Let's go through some other stuff that we wanted to talk about and put some tips and things of that nature. All right, so kind of look at some I want to talk about tips from the home buyer, right? Home buyers should always verify wire transfer instructions directly with known contacts at their title company using a verified phone number. And they should also be skeptical if things start to change at the last minute. Wow, I talked to such and such, and everything was supposed to be this. Now, all of a sudden, I get an email that it's something different. Don't blindly just go with the email. Call, verify. I see a change in our instructions. What's going on, right? And I know now, the big thing coming out is like deep fakes and things like that. I don't know where. I haven't read about a case like that as of now. I think we're, I'm not saying that in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're not going to see situations like that. Then we also got to think about measures around that. But, I'm just a fan of verifying in multiple ways. What does that mean? Email, text, phone call. Does it sound a bit much? I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. Well, and if you're dealing with a title company, and this is somebody who's like I said, close some deals. So I like to personally deal with the same title company and the same interview. Like if I had success on one deal and it went through successfully, I kind of keep those same people at play because it just works, right? If I worked out well with a title company, the deal closed, everything happened well. I know this person. I want to do the deal with them again and again. So I have cell phone numbers of people. But if trust me, I'm sending you thousands of dollars to close a deal, and I'm working with you, I want your cell phone. So real simple, and it's not saying that some of these mediums cannot be compromised. But I email you, you tell me the same thing. Text you, you tell me the same thing. Call you, talk to you, you tell me the same thing. My risk of it being something different is severely low, right? It's real low. Like I mitigated my risk. And that's what really all this stuff is. It's just risk mitigation strategies. But if I receive an email and I just go, oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to send over a large sum of money to these instructions, Also, right? And this, I mean, you have different people. So these are some are first time home buyers, investors. You tend to, if you deal with the same title company, you already have their wire instructions. So typically those don't change. So you did it on the first time, the first or two deals or transactions, and you're now in the third one, it should be the same. But that's what definitely I recommend from the home buyers. Some tips from title companies, right? Educate your clients about the risk of wire fraud. Like I said, I have worked over the last 20 years, well, more than 20 actually, in different real estate transactions. I've never had a title company talk to me about cybersecurity risk or wire fraud that I could remember. Like I said, I'm privy to it because of my profession, but I've never, I don't remember. Why is that? Now they don't do it to me. Like I said, not doing it to a first time home buyer who's super excited about their home or scared. I've read this quote in part of doing this research for the show, right? And it said, The times when cybersecurity threats are real prevalent is when someone's extremely scared or happy. I found that very interesting. And in real estate transactions, you definitely get that. People either extremely euphoric, I'm going to get the home of my dreams, or they're scared about the loss of the money. I don't know if we could afford it. So they're thinking about everything else but the potential of fraud. So why aren't there instructions from the title company? Why aren't there, listen, we're going to send these wire instructions. We're also going to call to confirm with you. We're also going to do this. Here's our number. Like I said, before we get super technical, start talking about building out a whole cybersecurity infrastructure for a title company, which I think we should, right? I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I think that is definitely a need, because if you're getting your emails compromised, that says to me there's certain practices you're not adhering to, which is invoking this compromise. So something we should do. But before we even do that, can we just get basic? Can we inform users of um, risk of wire fraud and different things? And here are some best practices. Here's the things you should be aware of if you receive an email that is not whatever. Don't do this. Don't do this. Basic. It's the same concept that we use in corporate environments where we talk about cybersecurity educations. You're educating your employees of what not to do because they are the biggest risk factor in your organization. Employees, leaving their laptops places, clicking on things, just especially now for remote work and stuff like that. Same concept. It's not, but the buyer is part of the transaction, right? They're going to be working with you for a certain amount of time until the deal gets closed, so they should be aware of certain things. They say another thing, some tips for banks, right? Because banks are involved. Enforce a robust security measures to detect and prevent fraudulent transactions. They should work closely with customers to confirm the legitimacy of a significant or unusual transaction, particularly during real estate deals. Here's the deal, man. Sometimes the house is left holding the bag, right? Because money's going from one account out to another account. So banks should definitely, putting a hold on something. I know it slows the deal down. A temporary hold. We just want to verify certain things. Who's this party you're sending it to? Have you confirmed that this party, like just those types of things, could be put in place. So, kind of did some research on. All right, let's say that you are now a victim of the fraudulent transaction. You unfortunately sent your 20% down payment over to a fake party. They posed as the title company. Now you sent it and your money's temporarily gone, right? What should happen afterwards? All right, immediate action. If the home buyer, affected party, should contact their bank immediately to request a recall of funds. Do that immediately, right? Notify all parties. Contact the title company, the real estate agent, law enforcement, and you have to report the incident. In situations like this, usually the FBI gets involved, right? So I'm going to pause right there because I want to talk about that. Ideally, right, the title company or a lot of real estate. I know, like I said, I've been moonlighting as a real estate agent for my own transactions for a long time, and I haven't really seen. This is something that we should put in place, right? Because we do the same thing in organizations and fintechs and everything. It's called disaster recovery, business continuity, things like that, right? I haven't seen that a lot of real estate, right? Meaning part of the disaster recovery scenario in a fintech is contacts. Because here's the deal. When disaster happens, and disaster could be cybersecurity, it can be a downed region in your cloud environment, and now you can get to your system, whatever it may be, right? When a disaster happens, or it could be a natural disaster, that is not the time to be scrambling, looking for contact information and trying to figure out what to do, who to contact, what's the number, no, absolutely not, because you're stressed, you're panicking, and and the word time is of the essence takes on a whole new meaning. So you should have these things in place prior to the incident. You should identify potential disasters that can go wrong, and you should have certain things in place. And it could be, who's your FBI contact if something were to go wrong? Who's the law enforcement contact? It's not going to be as simple as, oh, just call 911, something. No, you like, when you're dealing with wire fraud, the alphabet boys get involved, right? So FBI, right? Those types of organizations and entities get involved. Who's your contact information? Who's your local FBI office? You know that. You know these things, right? So it's great if your real estate agent and also the title company has this information, so that if a fraudulent transaction does occur, they're acting immediately. Like I said, time's of the essence. Your money's in limbo. You want to freeze those funds. You want to eventually get that money back, because what's going to happen once the fraudulent transaction takes place, the criminal is going to go through this layering process, meaning they want to get it out of the account that you just sent it to. They want to move it to another account, and they want to keep moving it and moving it, because the more they do that, they start putting distance between the original account the money got sent to and them and themselves. So they just keep moving it, because at the end of the day, their goal is to extract those that digital money into real money. So they're going to move it. So time's of the essence. Next stage, investigations, right? So banks will typically investigate the transaction to track down the destination of the fraudulent transfer, and attempt a recovery. So efforts will be made to recover the funds, which may involve a collaboration between the financial institutions and law enforcement. Insurance and liability. Review the insurance policy for potential coverage of losses and discuss liability remediation steps. So I mean, these are all good things to know, right? Good questions to even ask as a home buyer to your title company, to your real estate agent, right? Hey, I'm buying this house. What happens if I send money and we get caught up in some sort of crazy incident, in which I send money to a cybersecurity criminal? Am I insured against that? How does that work? Listen, it's a good question to ask. Some may go, I don't know, but I'll find out. Some may know. Point is, it's better to ask before it happens than after it happens. So those are things some tips you can do before. But yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's like I said, I wanted to talk about it. I was moved by the story that happened. Lady lost her life savings, but she didn't lose it. She eventually got it back after 6 months, but I'm sure that the house she was going after probably wasn't available. And other things happened. And the amount of stress, man. Who wants to do that? Like, imagine saving close to 400K, and all of a sudden you send it to the wrong cybersecurity criminal. You can't now move your limb. Look, I've lost a couple of $100 and felt that pit in my stomach. I couldn't imagine. I don't care how much wealth I accumulate in the future. 400K hit, that will still. I could have a $1 billion. If I lose 400K, I'm from Brooklyn. I grew up a certain type of way. I don't care. Like, money's money. Like, not taking those type of losses. And I can only imagine the feeling that person was going through, especially when you're trying to move into your primary residence, because you have a lot of other things going on. You're moving from your existing place. It's a whole other situation. So you have countless stories of this happening. And I just think, from an industry perspective, we can do better in helping home buyers, as in informing them and so forth. Um, you know, but yeah, this was one of the shows I wanted to talk about today and just get into. If you have any questions, comments, stories, let me know. I'm gonna be on for a little bit, and I'll shout you out. You know what? I did somebody I wanted to shout out. See if I can find it. Someone sent me some information. I want to shout them out on that. Hold up. Because I like to get quotes from people. Shout them out. See if I can find it. Give me 1 second. All right, cool. A mortgage broker sent something. Shout out to Liz Proud, Vice President of Greenbrier Capital LLC. We've been lucky enough not to experience any wire fraud to date. We also advise clients, title companies, and lenders to send wire instructions via secured email and always call to confirm the routing and account information before sending. Excellent job, Liz. Definitely agree with you on that. Want to shout them out, ask for some feedback and some stories of some industry professionals that I know that I've worked with. And she was gracious enough to send her thoughts on that. So definitely use a secured email. Those are usually email messages you get. Then you have to click into some password to actually get into that system because it's under a secured encrypted email. So you'll get the notification that you have a secured email, then you'll go into somewhere else and get it. Best practices, different things to put in place, limits your exposure, different, once again, risk mitigation strategies. Let's get a message from our sponsors and then we'll swing back to the show. Message from our sponsors.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget seeking more sales and partners? Introducing Strategic Generation, your partner in leveraging cybersecurity for sales and partner enablement. Fintechs often lose opportunities due to unsophisticated cybersecurity programs. That's where we come in. Strategic Generation assists with due diligence, security posture visibility, penetration testing, and on-demand virtual CISO services. We connect your systems to our partnered platform, and voila! Instant access to real-time diagnostics and compliance frameworks such as SOC 2 and PCI DSS. Gain the confidence of prospects and partners. Strengthen your cybersecurity program and drive success. Stop losing deals due to cybersecurity. Visit strategicgeneration.com and click on On-Demand CISO to connect with an expert.
Back. All right, guys, listen. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. This is one of the shows that I wanted to do and really just kind of talk about it because a lot of home buyers are falling victim to these real estate fraud and these fraudulent wire attempts. As we can see by the stats, it's increasing, and unfortunately with the way the numbers are going, it's only going to get worse. So the best way to protect yourself is stay informed. The people that you work with in terms of within the transaction, asking these critical questions that we talked about during the show, asking them like, what is your plan if something were to happen? Do you have these things in place? All the things we mentioned in the show. And and from a title company's perspective, implementing cybersecurity practices and so forth, different frameworks to protect yourself and different processes. And simple, call and verify before you send anyone a wire transaction. So that's today's show. Stay tuned for next week. I think next week's going to be a show on sales. We're going to have a sales expert. We're going to talk about fintech sales and different things of that nature. So next week, and always Friday, 12 p.m. EST is our live show. To all, have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. Also like to say appreciate the messages, the DMs, the emails, everything that you sent behind the scenes, the comments and so forth, the likes. Couldn't be here without you guys. We've been doing it for a while. Today's the 180th show. So thanks for the support over the years and over our shows. And we will be here for you. Once again, have a great and phenomenal weekend. Cheers.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget?
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.